Welcome, welcome. We're going to get started right about now. All right, welcome everyone. This is going to be an incredible conversation. It's called Why Jump? A Case for a Career in Blockchain. I'm joined by three esteemed panelists who will introduce themselves in a few. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about Gravy. My name is Brandon Jones. Launch Gravy basically to unpack generational wealth for the underrepresented in all its different forms. Bring conversations that we should be having more of. Create an environment where we can really share and be authentic, and then move together. And so we have a newsletter. We touch on various investment topics. Sign up. Go to gravyglobal.com. We have this conversation series. Stephanie and Corey here are actually two-time guests on this. They have been Gravy day ones. And then we also have an investment syndicate that we're spinning up as well. We've done deals in the past. We're going to formalize it and move together and support concepts that help us build generational wealth, but also reinforce this value of supporting underrepresented folks. So thank you for joining. I'm Brandon Jones again. Now I'm going to get started. Let's talk about the subject at hand here. So again, we've seen a lot of hype, a lot of noise around blockchain and Web3. There's been 4 times the number of Web3 blockchain jobs versus tech jobs in 2021, according to LinkedIn. And that growth signals a few things. It shows that that's where the money's going. It shows that that's where the opportunity is. But more importantly, it shows that a lot of folks should be evaluating what this opportunity may mean for them. And so we wanted to rope 3 folks, distinguished folks, who have made the jump recently, all of you, I think in the last year or so, to some of the best platforms in the Web3 blockchain space. So we have Antwoine Flowers, who's currently senior data scientist at Coinbase. We have Stephanie Smellie, who's currently the VP of Business Development at Dapper Labs. And we have Corey Cooper, who is a senior solutions engineer at Circle. And with that, I'm going to kick us off by just having all 3 of our esteemed panelists just share a little bit about their journey. We'll start with you, Stephanie.
All right, I'll kick it off. Thank you, Brandon. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Stephanie. As Brandon said, I'm VP of Content and Entertainment Partnerships at Dapper Labs. My journey has been not traditional. We can start from the beginning. Born and raised in Bermuda to Jamaican parents, but I started off at UNC Chapel Hill, a Tar Heel. And after that, I actually was an accountant. I worked on Wall Street for 5 years in New York, realized that wasn't really what I was excited about. And so I decided I wanted to go back to business school to kind of reset my career and pursue an industry that I'm passionate about, which at the time ranged anywhere from like music, tech, retail, fashion, sports, anything that I actually consumed as a consumer. So I got my MBA at Wharton. And from that, I went to Under Armour, where I was a global brand manager for basketball. And then from there, I moved to iHeartMedia, where I eventually became VP of Business Development and Partnerships. From that, I went to Spotify, where I headed up creator partnerships. And then I went to Dapper about 5 months ago. And here I am. And I'll pass it
Nice. On. I'm glad you paused there, because we're going to get into the why Web3 question shortly. Corey.
Okay, Corey Cooper. I'm a native of Atlanta, Georgia, currently living in Los Angeles, California. I'm a graduate of Hampton University and currently a senior solutions engineer at Circle. I've had over 15 years of experience in software development, mainly front-end development for different enterprise and SaaS solutions. I'm excited to speak with you all and tell you all about my journey in the crypto space. And I'll pass it over to Antwoine.
Hey everybody, my name is Antwoine Flowers. great to be on this panel of very impressive people. I am a native of the South Side of Chicago. Also attended at HBCU, Tuskegee University, where I got my undergrad. After that, went on to get my doctorate from the University of South Florida in neuroscience. And it was while I was there that I kind of got into the big data space, doing a lot of modeling work, moved into quantitative finance for a bit, worked in retail banking, and then the asset management industry as a data scientist. I was recruited out to the Bay Area to work for Google in their revenue acceleration group. Was there for about 2.5 years, at which point I hopped over to Coinbase last November. So excited to tell you guys about that journey.
Let's get to it. Antwoine, while we're still hot on you, why did you make that move? What is it about the movement that compelled you enough to make the jump?
It's two things. So one, my dad was in IT, and he would always ask me, he would always be like, what's the next Google? What are the thing we're looking? We can't miss that stock, right? We got to find like that next thing. And I have been writing white papers on blockchain since like 2016 because I was working in banks. But I hadn't really seen any applications of it that were really compelling. And then maybe it was like last year, maybe a year and a half ago, I started looking for like passive income stuff, right? Like, real estate investing or buying trucks, or, the whole EYL thing came up. And then I kind of stumbled on decentralized finance. And I was just like, whoa, like, what is this? Like, I knew about Bitcoin, I knew about Ethereum, but I didn't know there was this entire ecosystem of financial products that had been developed. They were early, obviously. There are a lot of issues with them, but I was just like, yo, this is like the first real thing I've seen. And I kind of fell down that rabbit hole of staking coins and yield farming and all that. And then when I saw that, I was like, yo, I gotta move. Like, this is the wave, because I saw, I'm like, if we can do this, the applications for this are just mind blowing. And I knew at that moment that I was just like, yo, this is the wave that nobody sees it yet. So let me hop on.
Love it. Stephanie, let's hear, a little bit more about your journey into Web3.
Yeah, I would say my interest probably started in 2017. I was actually looking for roles at Consensus at the time. That was during like the ICO bubble, when I wasn't sure about what I really wanted to do, but I knew blockchain was likely the next thing, but I didn't want to enter it with the finance lens. So I was always curious as to how it will impact media and entertainment. But then I put that to rest, kept on with my life. And then when I was at Spotify, my role was to do partnerships with platforms that would unlock opportunities and revenue for creators so that they can build sustainable careers. And so part of that during that time, I think Top Shot popped off that Dapper Labs created, and NFTs started to become more of a household name. And so I started looking at NFTs as a path to unlock revenue for creators, Spotify creators. And so as part of that exploration, I was talking to a number of NFT companies, Dapper Labs being one of them, and built a relationship with them with no intent to leave. But funnily enough, 2 roles popped up and somebody sent them to me. And me just being curious as to my market value and like, how can I get more money at my current job? I sent my contacts at Dapper a note like, hey, just curious as to like, what's up with these roles? They were like, yeah, we would love to talk to you about them. Yeah, that escalated really quickly. And I got 2 offers from Dapper, and I was like, I wasn't really planning on leaving, but since the opportunity was so great, I just felt like they were on the helm of what was next. And I deem it equivalent to me joining Spotify like 10 years ago when they were on the helm of what was next. And so I really wanted to take an opportunity to be part of a new technology, but still leveraging transferable skills from my like subject matter expertise. And Dapper seemed to be the perfect marriage of that. And so I took the plunge.
The rest is history. Love it.
Yeah.
Corey.
Yeah, so I was introduced to the crypto world in 2012 through a coworker of mine. And ever since then, I was just, immersed myself in the industry, just reading a lot of books, white papers on the industry. But I didn't see any companies emerge that were able to get to leverage blockchain technology in a way that, it could scale massively to, people who really didn't know anything about blockchain until 2020, when I saw Dapper take off with NBA Top Shot. And so I was an early user in that community, was involved in their beta testing, and really saw them kind of scale their product, and I was very impressed by it. And so the year 2021, the following year in 2021, I said, hey, I've got to go to all these different blockchain-based conferences because I really want to see how this industry infrastructure is built out. And so I ended up going to the Bitcoin 2021 conference in Miami. And it just opened up my eyes that, hey, this industry's arrived and it's a bright future. And I started reading a lot of stuff about how NBA Top Shot engineered their architecture on the back end to handle payments between secondary marketplace transactions. And I saw that they were using USDC. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. This is massive that Circle was able to be the
Can you break down what USDC is, just real quick so people can follow you?
Yeah, so USDC is a digital dollar currency that can be used on public blockchains to settle dollar-denominated transactions in real time at zero cost. And so Circle is the creator and mentor of USDC, and a lot of businesses use it to settle transactions globally instantly for zero cost. And so NBA Top Shot was using it, and I was like, I need to reach out to this company and see about opportunities, and the rest was history.
Love it, love it. And I got to shout you out in Mac SP, your cousin, for putting me on NBA Top Shot way early, and then it blew up. And I wish I had copped some of those early assets. All right, so one thing that I'm definitely picking up from this story is the intentionality piece of it. And Stephanie, I'm gonna come back to you first, because I remember you saying you looked at Consensus, which is another Ethereum blockchain kind of infrastructure app company. You were very specific about what you were looking for. And I think a lot of us don't have that same level of, you may look at a job site, you may see what roles they have, and then you may apply through the website. How did you kind of take the reins in terms of, one, just the research, and then actually engaging them in a way that you built that relationship that, was real versus kind of going through it out? Help us understand how you did that.
Specifically for Dapper?
Yeah, I mean, or even just how you thought about it, because you had chosen Consensus at first, obviously for some good reasons that you had.
I mean, back in 2017, Consensus was one of the few that even had career opportunities for someone who was not like specifically an engineer or a data scientist or any of those technical roles. But specifically for Dapper, I'm not going to pretend that like I didn't have an in. That definitely helped. But in terms of like the intention behind it,
Meaning some friend or former colleague.
Well, they were my partner for Spotify. I was speaking to them already.
Got it.
So I mean, I was speaking to them amongst other companies as part of the exploration for my roles. So I had contacts there, and they also knew like my expertise and competence level. But I will say that in terms of intentionality, I really wanted my next role to be something where that was giving me what I was lacking in my current role. And so that was like scrappiness and autonomy, because being at an established company, that's a lot harder than being at a startup. I also lacked startup experience, and that's something that a lot of job descriptions often add at the bottom. And I think that's just, it's It's a symbol, is symbolic for just entrepreneurial mindset, but they just like to say startup mentality. So I really wanted to add that to my toolkit. But in addition, I wanted the opportunity to build a team. I wanted the opportunity for high visibility. I wanted the opportunity for speaking opportunities. And I was very clear about that during the hiring process of what I was looking for. And I had the luxury, and I don't ignore my privilege in this, to say no, because I wasn't looking to leave Spotify. And so this was like, if you guys meet what I'm looking for, I'll leave. But if not, I'm quite happy where I am right now. And then in addition, I literally pinged everyone connected to blockchain. I remember pinging you, Corey, literally every friend I knew that knew what Dapper was or was familiar with blockchain, to just ask their opinion on where the industry was going, if they thought this would be a good move. And unanimously, everybody's like, yo, you need to go. So yeah, I definitely did thorough research. It wasn't an automatic decision. And that was also because I was happy in the role I was in. So I had a bit of leverage there to walk away as well.
You laid out quite a blueprint in terms of just the research, and then like that leverage, not having to leave, that definitely gives you a lot of power, and it draws them to want to sell you more, right? And I think those are key gems. Antwoine, were you specifically seeking out Coinbase like that, or how did the Coinbase situation come to be?
So it's funny because at the time I was at Google and I was thinking about a pivot within Google to machine learning engineering, which was kind of the space I wanted to focus on. And when I decided that, I was like, okay, I need to get into crypto. Really, I was looking at my background and I was like, what is the other thing that I would really be doing right now if I was not working at Google? And the answer was fintech. I was like, I'd always been interested in fintech. I had worked at retail banks and seen all of the issues there. I had worked in asset management, seen all the issues there. So I knew the problems the traditional industry had, and I saw the potential of a decentralized financial company to kind of come in and disrupt a lot of that. So as I was looking, there was like, I knew Square was moving in that direction, with Square now Block, because I knew Jack Dorsey was big on blockchain. So I was looking there as well. But the problem was they only had, at the time, they had a handful of people working on blockchain. They really hadn't, come out and changed their name and everything yet. And then obviously Meta had come out with the big metaverse thing, but that really still wasn't what I was quite looking for. And so Coinbase is obviously the big player on the block. And if you're looking for a public company, but that's still small and scrappy, right? Because they just IPO'd or DPO'd last year. They only had 2,000 employees when I joined. So you get that entrepreneurial experience, but you also get like stock, right? So, if you're looking for I was looking for the closest thing to working at Google, but in crypto, and it just turned out to be Coinbase.
And the role itself, did you apply to the website? Did you have a connection there? Like, how did you get matched up?
Man, honestly, I think one of the recruiter emails I got on LinkedIn, I think the thing is, once you get into like a big tech company, the recruiter emails just are flooding you in LinkedIn, and you generally just ignore them. I just think a Coinbase recruiter had reached out to me some point in the past. I just went and found it and replied and was like, hey, I'm interested in, these roles, let's set something up. So I think, once again, like Stephanie was saying, that's a part of the privilege. Like a lot of these companies, hire from big tech. A lot of the people I work with are from Facebook, Microsoft, Google, et cetera, et cetera. So it just seems to be like a poaching target or something. I don't know, but yeah, that's kind of what made it easier.
Got it. And so, Corey, you kind of talked about, Top Shot, and then understanding kind of stable coin, USDC, and Circle. So it made a lot of sense for you. You were kind of already immersed. So a lot of the theme I'm hearing is curiosity, and then saying, all right, what opportunities behind this curiosity? For folks that are kind of just starting in that journey, maybe they weren't, following and writing white papers on blockchain, what resources would you recommend people, newsletters, books, what should people do just to get a strong baseline understanding of like what's going on here for people that are just kind of starting out?
I would say just start listening to podcasts. That's something you can do while you're, on your daily walks or working out. So it's not anything that you kind of have to focus all your attention to watching. You can just listen, while you're doing other activities around the house. And I would say, some of the really good podcasts that I like to listen to are Unchained, which is a really good one. The Pump podcast is good. And Stephen Livera, that's a pretty good podcast. And they do a good job of just kind of covering a breadth of information around the industry on a pretty consistent basis. Some of them daily, some of them, 2 to 3 days out of the week, but they'll keep you up to date on what's going on. And they also bring a lot of founders on those podcast episodes, so it can give you an idea of who to reach out to if you're kind of looking for opportunity and jobs.
Got you. Would anyone else? I see Antwoine threw out Bankless, a good podcast focused on DeFi. Stephanie, you did kind of the inner circle, your network, and kind of just hitting up individuals. Any other resources, pop up for you?
Yeah, I'm a big podcast person too. Like, I don't have time to sit down and read. I listen to NFT Now. That's a good one for the NFT space. Bankless as well. Decrypt Daily gives you an update on like crypto prices every day and the top news. But I would say the best resource is honestly Twitter. That's where you'll get real-time information. That's where all the thought leaders in the space are jotting down their thoughts and updating. And it's just as easy as following a hashtag like NFTs or blockchain, and it will be a curated feed for you that super useful. And you're like first to hear news.
So you can put in hashtag DeFi, hashtag NFT, and you think Twitter itself will curate a high quality kind of set?
Yeah, they'll usually curate the most popular people in your feed coming up. And that's where honestly, like my founder, most NFT and blockchain founders are announcing things there. And also follow like actual blockchains like Solana, Ethereum, Polygon, Flow from Dapper.
Got it. All right, so let's move a little bit into the risk piece, right? So obviously, blockchain, Web3, crypto, whatever you want to call it, is a very shiny object, but there's also a risk associated with it as well. So as we dive into the risk conversation, I guess the first risk for some people may be, if I'm working at a Google, a Facebook, or some, more traditional, but still good job, how do I even approach leveling? How do I approach, what is considered to be the proper suited? Because I'm taking more risk because it's an early stage company. Should I be trying to escalate or elevate my level? Like, help people understand when you first engage, you had that conversation. How did you know what level you should be in? What type of role you should be pursuing? How did you think about just the career trajectory risk from like a title position perspective? And that's just open to anyone who feels compelled to answer.
I thought about this a lot because one of the reasons that I was leaving Google is because I was at a point where I was either about to switch teams or get promoted and like lead the team I was on. And so I really had to decide, like, it was really a big thing to walk away from, right? Because it was like, they're like, we see you as the next leader of this team. And I had to ask myself, like, okay, that's a lot of security, but like, in 5 years, do I really want to look back and say, I run RevX? Like, it was really like, or do I want to take this shot? The reality is, just from living in the Bay, you see, if you get in at the right time at a company and you can time it right, that's how people are buying those $1 million, $2 million houses, bro. It really is just, you de-risk it by understanding the dynamics of the company and then understanding like how they do their leveling. But I think I talk to a lot of people about leveling and they always approach it from have this certificate, have this. I stopped thinking about a resume a very long time ago. I started thinking about like my capabilities and the amount of value that I bring to a particular role. And that's how I approach it. So like I knew the level I was at Google and I wanted that level or higher at Coinbase, depending on what the responsibilities of the role would be. So coming in as a senior DS, there's a lot of autonomy. Could I have come in as a lead? Well, am I really going to lead like a blockchain analytics team when I've never done blockchain analytics? It's like some people will like shoot for that extra level and put themselves in a bad situation instead of just saying, yo, I'll give myself 2 years to kind of get my footing under me, and then accelerate. The reality is, while there's a big difference in the money, a lot of it is performance based. So like at Coinbase, the stock compensation is ridiculous to the point where like your ratings are 1 through 5. And if you get like a 4, your salary increases by like 25%. And if you get like a 5, it increases by like 75%. So like it really is performance based to the point where like you don't really have to be at a higher level to get paid more. And that's what I tend to like about crypto companies in general.
I like that. And I guess, does anyone else have anything to add? And also, just how did you evaluate the financial package structure, right? Because a private company versus a public company, how did you value kind of the equity piece? Were you willing to sacrifice some base for the upside? Like, help us kind of think through, in your situation, how you kind of really thought through, the compensation elements of it.
I can kind of talk about the first, well, not the compensation part, but what you asked Antwoine, kind of about the risk of just kind of jumping to a Web3 crypto company. I kind of looked at it from my perspective. After doing a lot of research, I knew that this industry was not going anywhere. It was just a matter of time before it became massively adopted to the point that it was integrated in everybody's transactions in everyday life. So that de-risked my move tremendously. It was now about, okay, I'm going to another company, and which company do I want to choose? Because it's really about how much can I learn? How much can I learn? Because it's like going to school, because everybody's learning this new industry, and these companies are kind of essentially like R&D labs, trying to find product market fit on different products and services. So I kind of looked at it like, hey, I'm going to school, in an R&D lab for a company that is trying to democratize online payments, which, if online payments becomes the standard in 5 to 10 years, I'll probably be one of the most in-demand people to kind of reach out to about how do we do decentralized online payments. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of how you have to look at it. You have to think about, okay, a step ahead of the game, like, okay, what am I going to get out of this from a skill set perspective that will put me in a position where my knowledge will be in demand from different people or potential employers after, my time at the company.
Got it.
Plus one.
Really quickly.
Yeah. No, I was just saying plus one of what Corey said.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't really a risk from a financial standpoint, at least like salary and equity and title. They were all a bump up for me, we're very fortunate, but Dapper was an established player in the space, so they could afford to do that. I think my risk was job security and also benefits. And so like with startups, you're not going to have a lot of the cushy benefits you get at established companies, like maternity benefits, 401k matching, all of that. And so that was concerning to me, but especially with like 401k stuff. And I spoke to some people at the company and they're like, if we go public or if we do well, like F your 401k, like that does not even measure up. So like it was getting out of the mindset of like comfort zone and into the mindset of like abundance. And another one was job security, but I think I'm just at the stage of my career where if all of this goes to ruin, I have enough like checks in my boxes to say like, I will find another job. But also to Corey's point, I spoke to a lot of people on this and they're like, if you just like have this position and role on your resume, like you're now a big fish in a small pond. And regardless if this company dissolves in a year or not, you're a Web3 partnerships expert and you will get a job in a second. So it was pretty clear that I was making
exciting stuff. I'm loving this so far. Anything that anyone else would add just on the risk side that people should consider, one way or the other?
Yeah, I think to play into what they both just said, like, how many, whatever your title is, how many of them have Web3 experience? It's like this big. And then take your title. So I was like, yes, it's risky, but I'll be a data scientist with machine learning experience in blockchain. That's like 1,000 people. So assuming that blockchain itself doesn't disappear, I'm amplifying my demand. And then the other thing is, like, if you're at a more established company, your stock is probably at 70, 80, 90% of whatever it's ever gonna be. When I left Google, the stock was at like $3,000. So is it gonna go to 30? No, but Coinbase could 10x. So do I wanna like be filling my pockets with stock that I think could 10x, 20x, or stock that I think is like gonna meander around where it's at for the next 5 years?
Got you.
I just want to add one point to what Antwoine is talking about, because it's very, very valuable, especially in the thesis of gravy. Any young, entrepreneurs or people fresh out of college on this call, always try to find companies that are going to give you equity, because at the end of the day, a salary cannot shoot up 1,000%. That just doesn't happen in the likelihood of you actually going from one position to another and getting 1,000%, boost in your salary. Is just, that's probably never going to happen, but your stock can. And so it's all about building generational wealth and wealth for you and your family. So, when you're out here searching for job opportunities, try to look for those opportunities that are giving the most stock, because you don't want to get too fixated on salaries, because that's not going to get you to a comfortable position with the way the world is today.
Well said. And I would add on to that, consult a tax advisor, but when you get paid equity, there's a lot more flexibility potentially to pay less taxes on that, as well as potentially never sell or take loans against it at very low interest rate to acquire additional assets of value. So, but that's a different conversation for another day. I'm going to move back to the culture of these Web3 companies. I want to hear, going from a Google, going from a Spotify, how does it feel? First, just start with how many employees are at the company, so there's a size element to it. And then, of course, it's a nascent industry. I would love to hear just the reality of the cultural differences between the big company and the Web3 company you're at today. Stephanie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so my company currently has about 500, and just for reference, we were about 50 last year. So that should give an idea about culture and how fast we're moving. And Spotify had about 5,000. So very different. I will say my life at Spotify was very nice and comfortable, and I slept and I took vacations, and they don't bother you on vacation. That is not the case anymore. So yeah, work-life balance is just a dream right now. It's not reality by any means. I'm fortunate enough that like some parts of my job overlap with personal life. So like I like socializing, I like schmoozing.
South by Southwest,
I get to do a lot of events, yes. But don't be fooled, it's still work. And with a higher level of visibility also comes a higher level of stress and anxiety. And so it's a gift and curse that I'm doing deals with my CEO, because it's a gift that I'm doing deals with my CEO. It's a curse that I'm doing deals with my CEO, because yeah, it's stressful. So I'm not going to pretend that it was a bump up in like my anxiety level. Like it's stressful, but I'm hoping that hustling a few years will give me the opportunity to coast in the future.
I love the honesty in that answer. And I think it's important to know that there's, there's trade-offs, right? Like you got everything you want in terms of coming over there, but it was for a reason, in delivering takes time, effort, a little bit of stress, but ultimately that's kind of what you wanted as well. Real quick, I'm gonna go to you next, Antwoine. Audience, if you have any questions, start to pop them in at the 45 mark. We're gonna start to take audience Q&A. So go ahead and just throw anything out there that you're thinking. I'll try to make sure we get to those before we close. Antwoine, culture shift from Google to Coinbase.
Man, look, I'm stressed out. But I knew that going in, right? Like when I was at Google, man, like Stephanie was saying, I could take vacation. I get my job done in 4 days a week because I got an engineering team. I got great infrastructure. Like all I got to do is my job. Please. Yeah, no problem. Man, I went to Google has 150,000 employees. When I got there, it was 2,500 in November. We're now at 4,800 with a plan to hire another 2,000 this year. 85% of the data science organization has been there less than 6 months. That means there are no processes. Like shit's breaking all the time and you gotta fix it and you're on call and you're this and you're that. And the reality is I'm doing parts of my job that I've never had to do before. So, but I knew that. And one of the reasons that I came here is as an aspiring entrepreneur myself, I really wanted to see what it was like when you had to like build the ship as you flew it. And this is a public company. This isn't even like what Stephanie's talking about, like 400 employees. This is like, we got 4,000 people. Like, but when you see what it really takes to run a global financial company with 4,000 people, then we working. And so it's a very big difference. But I would say, like Corey said, it takes me back to grad school. It's like, yo, I'm learning a shit ton right now, and I'll be able to go build something myself because I got to do it now. So it's a great education.
Corey, anything you want to add?
Yeah, like Stephanie, a year ago, I think it was about 10 employees at Circle. Now it's a little over 450. So just about everybody's new. Very diverse background. I think the cool thing I would say about Circle is it's a lot of people who aren't coming from, the tech sector or whatever. So they think a little bit differently, and we're able to kind of collaborate on ideas and see, just different perspectives, of how to approach the market. It's kind of like, working. I mean, we're still technically a startup, and we're supporting a lot of startups as well, which makes it very interesting too. And I would say, a typical employee at Circle, you have to be very agile. That's one thing. Self-starter. We're building everything from scratch because we're such a new company. So it's kind of like everybody has their own small little startup within a startup that they're focused on building, processes and procedures and around and things like that. So you just have to, have a very outgoing, presence and personality to enjoy, these type of high growth startups, because a lot of it is just like, hey, your superiors or your colleagues may say, hey, we need this and we don't have it. So can you build it over the weekend? It's like, okay. So yeah, and Antwoine knows what I'm talking about. And they're a public company, but like they're on the cutting edge of leading, the charge of what Web3 is going to be in so many different facets. So yeah, you just have to be very creative.
Can you build it over the weekend? It reminds me of my investment banking days. All right, I'm glad you touched on it. And I want to just throw this last little layer out on the culture question. Gravy ultimately is riding for the underrepresented folks. Has that emerged yet? Companies that have, affinity groups, we're talking about super small companies, and you all are just busy getting work done. Does it feel inclusive? Does it really feel, I think the spirit of Web3 blockchain is it's, merit-based, it's very open, inclusive, role for anybody. But then you have these emerging leaders who are the Google, Facebooks, et cetera, right? And so there's going to be this culture within the company What's just your view in terms of how open, inclusive these cultures really are relative to the places you come from? Or, lack of thereof, which reminds you of maybe where you come from as well. Just, any thoughts, reflections on that?
I would speak on it because Coinbase is very interesting because I don't know if anybody remembers, but like during the George Floyd thing, the CEO put out a letter saying, we are a mission-focused company and we are not going to talk about social issues here. And if you want to leave, I'll give you a severance. And I think like a third of the people quit. And, coming from Google, which is very like in your face DEI, I actually prefer Coinbase because Google's is kind of bullshit. Like, it's like they will put all the intersectional minorities up on all the talks. But the reality is, like, at the end of the day, that company is majority Asian men. It will always be majority Asian men. It's so ingrained in the culture that everybody there is from Stanford and Berkeley that they make jokes about it at onboarding. Who's a bear? That's how the company was founded, that the best computer scientists come from Stanford and Berkeley, and that's how it operates today. So like, they can say whatever they want, but until more Black people start going to Stanford and Berkeley, like Google ain't getting no more diverse. Whereas I got the Coinbase, and Coinbase is already like 7 or 8% Black, which for a small company is pretty impressive, And I think they don't talk about it, but they are about it. And the other thing that's cool is that at the level that you come in, everybody comes in with the same package for that role at that level. So there is no wage gap, right? If you're at this level and this role, everybody makes the same amount. And then the differences are based on performance. So they're it's that Web3 mentality of can't be evil instead of don't be evil that I think is like actually working out to everyone's benefit.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I think I would say I think Circle's being very intentional about including minorities, and I've seen it in some of their hirings at the VP level, as well as even at the junior level as well. And I would say that at our company, a lot of it is focused on supporting nations and in regions of the world where it's hard to get dollars. And so in order for us to be successful, we have to have a good share of minorities in the company. And I think they're being intentional about that. And I think what I would say, as it pertains to the entire industry, I think that it's really on people like us on the panel, to go proactively recruit people that look like us as much as possible, especially if our company's giving us the green light to say, hey, find some talent for us. I think that we need to try to find people, within our community, because that's what other communities do.
And just really quickly for me, well, one thing I'm pretty bullish about, like, my demands around diversity. And when I interviewed, I was like, so do you have any efforts to get Black people in the building? And they're like, we are a diverse company and we're very proud of that, but we would love for you to help with that. And I was like, you're not hiring me as head of DEI. I'm being hired for partnerships, but you have to be careful because especially in startups when they don't have, I'm like the only Black woman leader. And we have some Black men, but I am in a position to influence. And so I've leveraged that, but it's a thin line to tread on because you can become like Malcolm X of the company. And I don't want to do that either, not from my brand perspective, but because I have a full-time job and you'll get caught doing things that you're not being paid to do and then you can't do your real job well. So my mission at Dapper is to make sure that I influence recruiting, because at the end of the day, blockchain is still a very white male space. Even though it's decentralized and open for the world, people are still going to just hire who they know. And so if you're in a place to influence hiring, you should do that. And then also from even outside of the company perspective on our blockchain, I've been pushing getting Black developers building on our blockchain and Black creators doing drops on our blockchain. And so really trying to just make it more reflective of what the world is, because blockchain, they push a lot of BS, but it's not diverse, it's not decentralized, it's not open. It's still very much narrowed down to the top 1%, and we have to change that.
Got it. Very, very well said. All right, we're gonna switch gears a little bit and dive into your minds. And this is gonna be more of a rapid fire style because I still want to get into the wealth journey aspect of it, which is what Gravy is all about. So we'll start off. Antwoine, what are your favorite books? What are you reading right now? Book favorite, or what are you reading right now? What are you interested in?
It's funny. I read textbooks, man. I'm a nerd like that. But I will say, like right now, I'm reading Ethereum Demystified, like getting up on my smart contract game. But one of my favorite books is probably Atomic Habits. It is a system for breaking down your bad habits and your triggers and building up solid new habits. So that's probably one of my favorite books. I actually also really like Ray Dalio. His books tend to be pretty big. He just came out with a new one called The Changing World Order. So if you're interested in like global finance and kind of the macro of political events, I think Ray Dalio is actually pretty good. Other than that, I listen to a ton of podcasts. So one of my favorite podcasts is three. I Will Teach You to Be Rich, and then Bankless for DeFi, and then How I Made My First Million is actually a super dope podcast that changed my entire outlook on like careers and money and everything. I'm like, yo, I got to do something different. So like, if you haven't listened to How I Made My First Million, go listen to How I Made My First Million.
Take that from the Ph.D. senior data scientist at Coinbase. Corey, same question.
So what I'm reading right now is The Sovereign Individual. So it's called The Sovereign Individual, The Information Stage. It's an older book, but it's about just how the internet and internet technologies are breaking down jurisdictional barriers of government control, and how access of value and information over time will globalize the world. And so it's a pretty good book. As far as podcast, I like We Study Billionaires. So basically what they do is they do a actual Cliff Notes episode on different books that billionaires have written and their approach to investing. So I think it was pretty instrumental in me really kind of understanding actually how to invest myself, and put together an investing strategy that met, my profile and what I liked. So, yeah.
Nice. Stephanie.
I just got comfortable with the fact saying that I don't read books right now because I don't have time, and it would be a lie if I said that I had a favorite book. But I do listen to a lot of podcasts, and I read a lot of articles and newsletters and Twitter every day. So that's what I've spent my time doing. Podcast recommendations, I would say Pivot is a good one by Recode. Also, Masters of Scale with Reid Hoffman. The Tim Ferriss Show is another good one. And Antwoine mentioned it before, EYL, Earn Your Leisure. That's a great one in building generational wealth. Oh, and one more from a Gravy member, Trapital. It goes through the business and tech of the hip hop industry.
Brother Dan Runcie, shout out to Brother Dan. Love it. All right, now we move to success rituals. Antwoine, you talked about Atomic Habits. What are some of the rituals that you run to drive optimal performance, to be your best self, whatever that may look like?
Couple things I'll focus on. Exercising in the morning is a game changer for me. Like, it gives me energy throughout the day. And then keeping my carbs low, like staying away from the breads, the rice, the pasta, unless it's a special occasion or something. I'm not religious about it, but honestly, with the level of productivity that I'm trying to have, it only really works. And other than that, it's really trying to keep it simple, because if you try to pile too much into a morning routine, it just becomes jumbled. So I just make sure, I'm either at the gym or on the Peloton in the morning, and I'm eating lean and eating healthy.
Corey.
I would say it's around success rituals. That's
Yeah.
I would say working out every day, because without health, you can't even be successful. So that's the first thing. But after that, it's about just executing on anything. I feel like at a young age, my mother just drilled me on just completing simple tasks. And what it taught me to do was just complete tasks. And through completing tasks, you learn stuff. And then it becomes repetitive and easy to do. And everybody's like, wow, how did you do that so fast? It's like, well, it's just repetition of just completing these different tasks. So that's my ritual.
Simple and deep. Stephanie, what do you got?
Working out, praying, spending time outside. That's why I moved to Miami, because I needed to be able to go for walks and see the ocean. And I'm an island girl, so that brings me peace. But to-do list.
It wasn't the tax benefits.
I mean, but to-do lists, I thrive off of to-do lists. Crossing them off sparks joy, and it also breaks things into digestible tasks where when you have a monumental activity ahead of you, you procrastinate because you think it's too big to accomplish. But when you break it into smaller chunks, it's like small wins, and then you can work yourself up to bigger wins.
What tool do you use for your task management?
I'm like a systems freak. So I have a Notion going that is very complex, and it goes from database to to-do list, and then it connects to my notes from meetings and so on and so forth. But when I have systems that make my life more efficiently, the inner nerd in me is very happy.
All right. Antwoine, if you weren't doing what you're doing today, what would you be doing?
If I wasn't private equity, I really love the idea of I'm just an operational efficiency nerd. So I guess maybe that's super similar to what I'm doing now. I don't know. But for me, it would just be buying companies, improving them, and selling them. I just always thought private equity was a super cool industry.
Corey, same question.
I'd say an architect. Yeah.
Stephanie.
I would be doing my own business. So I have a business called Black and Home. And it's a home design, home decor content platform that celebrates the home lives of Black people. So I would and hope to be doing that full time in the future. No shade to Dapper, I will be working there for now. And if not, DJing. I love to DJ, and yeah.
It.
Other side of that, laying on a beach, because who wants to work?
Do you have a playlist, Stephanie?
I have many playlists.
Okay, you should share it with us.
She was at Spotify, so I know she gets busy. Stephanie, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Not to overthink it, and life works out how it's supposed to.
Corey.
I'd say just focus on minimize, the amount of things you're doing, and try to, laser focus in on things that matter the most.
Antwoine.
Chase the hard things. If it feels hard to you, just do it and get used to doing hard things over and over and over again.
Got it. All right. So great is about generational wealth. I'm curious. This is the last question. You can kind of bundle these together, and I'm gonna go around the horn. And I'll start with you, Corey. Why is generational wealth important to you? One, and two, what legacy do you want to leave on this planet, when it's all said and done?
Okay. So to answer the first part of the question, generational wealth is important to me because I would like to give my kids, when I do have kids, a head start. or a better start than I had. And I wouldn't say that I didn't have a good start. I had a really good start from my parents. But I always felt like every generation should give the next generation a bigger head start. And so that's why it's important to me. And what was the second part of the question?
Legacy. What do you want your legacy to be?
Just someone who, brought value to the world.
You've definitely done it for the Gravy community, man. And we have a lot more to come on that front. So keep that up. Antwoine, same questions for you.
Man, my grandmother was a seamstress and a nanny, and didn't finish high school, and she was from Mud, Mississippi, and her grandson has a Ph.D. in neuroscience. So for me, that is generational wealth, and continuing to pass on that legacy of hard work, self-reliance, and belief is super important to me. I really do feel like it's people that are in touch with their roots and their community are going to be the ones that can build a better world. So the more capable and access our kids have, I think the better place the world will be. What was the second question?
Legacy.
My legacy, man, my legacy is going to be making this world a little bit, just a tiny fraction of a bit better than it was when I got here. That's all I hope to do is make this system work a little bit better.
Last but not least, big thinker, big dreamer, Stephanie, what's, why is generational wealth important for you?
Yeah, I think that some people have the luxury of being born into privilege or being a certain color, and that just gives them privilege. And I want to be able to give my descendants that same luxury just because they're being born. And so setting them up to have steps ahead, and also giving them the luxury of being able to pursue what they want and what they're passionate about versus what they need to do to make a living. And so I think that is the biggest flex when you're doing what your core competency is and what excites you and brings you joy. And I want to be able to give that luxury to my kids and their kids.
Love it. And legacy, what do you want to be known for when it's all said and done?
Yeah, I want to be known as similar to Antwoine and Corey, of someone who made someone's life a better, or made someone's life better, whether it's through finances, whether it's through a smile, whether it's through opportunity. But I want, when I leave people, to make a lasting impact and for them to remember how I made them feel.
Love it. There you have it. We're right up against the hour. I want to thank Antwoine, Stephanie, and Corey for dropping game. If you attended this, you got $1 million worth of game just now. I hope that this was helpful for you to really evaluate, your own situation. If you're not plugged into the Gravy ecosystem, it's all about unpacking generational wealth. You can go to gravyglobal.com, sign up for the newsletter. We have a Slack community. We have a number of events, and we have a syndicate as well. So get involved. We're moving together, to build this generational wealth. Shout out to Leslie Espy behind the scenes, helping pull this together. Thank you for everyone who came out and everyone who's been a day one Gravy member. We're just getting started. We have a lot more to come this year. So with that, we'll wrap up. Thank you again, panelists. I thought it was an incredible level of knowledge that was shared, and look forward to getting a recording out to the folks that couldn't make it. With that, take care, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.